doubts, uncertainties, without any irritable reaching after fact and reason. All right. So just try to wrap your mind around that thought. Okay, a peculiar state in which a person is capable of being in uncertainties, mysteries, doubts, without any irritable reaching after fact and reason. I'm sure all of you, at some point or the other, as consultants or trainers or coaches um, or educators, have been in this unique state of mind where you really have to be comfortable with not knowing. All right. So this is not something that's brand new to you, as you'll see.
attachment, which was why I think I resonated with what Terry said.
Hmm.
In meditation and in certain religious traditions, it's defined as holding on to what you know very lightly because we don't really ever know the full reality.
Hmm.
And so it seems to me like a very tenuous and sort of fragile state that one seeks to maintain.
Interesting. Interesting. A tenuous in a very fragile state. It's a very, very fragile. And it actually um, is a very fleeting state because it's a very temporary state. You cannot be in that state, Stephanie, forever, right? I mean, it's you're for moments you're in that state, but then you're out of state. You're in that state. You're out of state. Uh, when somebody asks you a question, you have to be coming out of that state, and then you withdraw. When you're dealing with that ambiguity, it's how you handle that ambiguity in your mind. I mean, can you resist the pressure to go, like Seema said, to go and fix the situation, to jump right in and say, okay, here are the answers. All right. And we've all worked for organizations where a leader will be, or calling a meeting, and she says, well, the space is really open for you guys. Okay. This is your meeting. And then lo and behold, 20 minutes into the meeting, she or he jumps right in with, hey, wait a second. Where are we going with this? All right. And to fix that, to take control. And the moment you take control, you are not being content with the half knowledge. We're just staying with whatever it is that emerges. So that was very valuable. Thank you, Stephanie. I appreciate that.
You're
Let's
welcome.
see. Anybody else wants to? Suman, let's see what you have to say here. Okay, I'm just going to Suman. Yeah, go ahead, Suman.
I was actually going back to some of my own experiences of being in this space of negative capability,
Uh
and
huh.
I was just remembering the joy and amusement of not jumping into an opinion and a decision.
Mm-hmm.
It's just watching it from far,
Mm-hmm.
and the paradox is, if you have to define inspiration,
Mm-hmm.
can we still draw inspiration in this moment of silence when you're watching?
Mm-hmm.
It's so beautiful. So I
Yeah.
just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. And I just wanted to share from my own experience, and I've written about this a little bit also, that there are times when, let's take the example of someone being in love, okay, right? And there's a little anxiety there. You obviously want to respond to the person, be emotionally present, emotionally available with that person because you want to hold that person in that moment. So clearly, negative capability in that moment may not be the best avenue to take. However, if there's another situation out there which is not so close to you, okay, as in someone that you love, if you're working with a client, you're more able to stay back in that space yourself and see what emerges in that space. Um, so the tendency to just not jump in there and fix things and all that, I think you can use that capacity a little bit more when you're not too emotionally vested with that situation. And I've seen that happening both sides, and you never really know how things are going to go, because if you just stay back in and remain with that space or in that space, it can trigger a lot of anxiety for the other person. Hey, what's going on? So why don't you speak? Why are you quiet? And then all sorts of other processes start to come up. Um, so yeah, so that's very helpful. Vanita, I just wanted to ask you if you'd like anything to add to this.
Yeah, one phrase which has come across to me a long time back was that pursue mystery, not mastery. And
Ah,
that's where this negative capability has really fallen for me.
uh-huh.
And I realized many a times, especially at this point of time in my life, I realized that sometimes knowledge becomes my impediment.
Uh-huh.
It becomes my impediment for being curious.
Wow, that's a good one. I like that thought. Yeah. Let's see. Dr. Anuradha wanted to say, and we've got two Anuradhas here, so I'm going to say Dr. Anuradha is Dr. Anuradha Prasad, right? Okay, there you go. So go ahead, Anu.
Hi, Anil.
Hi, how are you?
Anil, I just put something there, and I was wondering if anybody would like to comment on this one.
Yes. Keats writes to Bailey, the first thing that strikes me on hearing a misfortune having befallen another is this. Well, it can't be helped. He will have the pleasure of trying the resources of his spirit. Wow. That's a nice one.
I would, I doubt if I would always be able to keep such a cheerful and positive, optimistic demeanor if I'm consulting. So I just wanted to hear what others have to say.
Go ahead. Does anybody have anything to say on that? That's a very interesting thought. How about Sonia? Would you like to add something?
No, I'm just enjoying listening.
Okay, good. That's a very interesting thought. That the first thing that strikes me on hearing a misfortune having befallen someone is this. Well, it can't be helped. He will have the pleasure of trying the resources of his own spirit. I mean, the entire
Stephanie
bond.
wants to say something.
Huh? Go ahead.
Anil,
Yeah.
Stephanie wants to say something.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. I'm sorry. I was looking up. I just didn't see the comment there. Okay, let's see. Stephanie, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I really, Dr. Anuradha, love the quote. In fact, I've just been spending a few minutes copying it down for future reference. I I wanted to say that this quote from Keats that she shared for me goes back to Schein and how he says the only person who can truly solve the problem and own the problem is the client. And for me, this quote really hits at we we can't really help anyone else other than helping them to help themselves.
Right. And here's another on Keats's quote. You got me started here. Here's another one. You see, he says, "We see the ebb and flow of the feeling, its pauses and feverish starts, its impatience of opposition, its accumulating force when it has come to recollect itself, the manner in which it avails itself of every passing word or gesture, its haste to repel insinuation, the alternate contradiction and dilation of the soul." It's amazing, just along with those thoughts, how much Keats has written on that. It just truly is amazing. So, Stephanie, what were your thoughts on that?
Uh, I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch all of the quote.
Yeah, you know what? I will send you all uh, that quote. It's from his poem Endymion. Endymion.
Oh,
Okay. it's incredible. If you can get uh, some of this, and even on the internet, if you can go see if you go to just type in into Google Keats's expressions, especially his ode to indolence and ode to a nightingale. Okay, you're going to see some absolutely amazing stuff that he has written. What a brilliant poet he was, and what a shame that he had to die at the age of 25. So okay, so let's see. I think let me just see. Somebody wanted to say something here. Yeah, go ahead, Balaji, please.
Hello. Yeah,
Yeah,
Anil, you want?
yeah. You had said wanted to say difficult to take Keats's position. Yeah, it's what
Yeah.
that's
So,
amazing.
no, basically, no, definitely not taking his position. I just agreed with what Anuradha said. That is, if I invest my emotions and into a situation, then it would be difficult to take its position.
Uh-huh.
So because a part of me is there, and therefore I feel the pain.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Very nice. All right. So let me just move to the next slide to just to build on this a little bit.
Also, is
Yeah.
Anil, another thing which I would, don't you think that it would appear a little insensitive also if somebody is cut off his hand, let's say theoretically, and you say, great, I mean, he learned something out of the pain. Won't it appear insensitive if one were
Well,
to
well,
use that same
Anu,
expression?
you've done a heck of a lot of process work. Okay, so let me put this back at you. Okay, I caught you there. Metaphorically speaking, okay, when stuff like this happens in a group, do you not put it back on the participant and say, hey,
No, but
just
I always acknowledge the pain. I
of
don't
course.
turn around and say, you come to the lab, now you learn something, you grow and grow. I don't do that, never.
No, I
I will
understand.
acknowledge
No,
pain when I
I
see
no no
pain.
I don't. I'm just being facetious there. I mean, I understand that you show the empathy there, uh, and 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 actually, on the other hand, if you attended the Tavistock stuff, the workshops, the Tavistock, they call them the
Hmm.
group relations conferences. There is there is no such thing as an individual intervention. There's no individual is being addressed. It's always being addressed to the group. So even if somebody in the group was hurting big time, you say, "What is it doing?" The consultant might ask the question of the group. So what is this doing to the group? How's the group feeling about this? Not how is Anil feeling about it or how's Anu feeling about it. Are you in pain? So it's a very
Very
group-based
true.
intervention. Okay. No, I totally agree with you. It's
Very true.
such a difficult competency to even it's so difficult to even understand, let alone practice. And we all have been guilty of that. There's only a certain point of time to which you can hold this in, and then your pressure is to react on, even if not to react, but to act on it, to be able to show an avenue to let the other person know, listen, I'm hearing you. All right. So let's talk about this a little bit more. The moment you jump into that and fill that space or try to fill that space, which Keats says is negative space, which accommodates not only your own thoughts and feelings and emotions, but also the thoughts and feelings and emotions of the other person. So clearly, I mean, it's by any stretch of imagination, it's really not an easy competency to master. Right? So let me just go to the next slide and just talk a little bit about what is the positive and what is the negative in this. All right, let's just look at this slide. Positive is how much we do know, how much we can get done, and how quickly we can arrive at decisions. It begins with an already full plate and hidden agenda steeped in knowing and acting. No room for half knowledge or ignorance. On the other hand, negative is how much we don't know, It starts with an empty space while you're resisting the urge to disperse into action when the anxiety and uncertainty are high. Comfortable with not knowing and not doing. I mean, clearly, you have to be a total idealist and romantic like me to be able to appreciate this. It's not an easy concept to even get your arms around. It's extremely hard. I mean, even to stay in that liminal space where you are neither on this side of the boundary nor on the other side of the boundary. You're at the boundary, but you're actually on both sides. And how difficult it can be to be on both sides of the boundary. So, Payal, let me just give it to you, Payal. You've written something there. Go ahead, Payal.
Yeah. So I think when I saw this negative and positive capability, something just occurred to me. While I was also reading Ed's work and some of the work that I've been doing, I realized that initially, as a facilitator, there is a need to say, there is a need to make meaning, etc., etc. And that's really the anxiety of the facilitator rather than the group. But as a facilitator, when we are able to work from where the group is, because they're going to be as they are, and if as a facilitator you're able to help the group with where they are, then it's really about the group and not about you. So that anxiety of making meaning or saying something is something which you're coming from or carrying with, which is not a part of the group. And how can we as facilitators be in the now to facilitate what the group is saying?
Okay, so to that point, let me just ask you this question: that is it not possible that the group is invoking unconsciously some anxiety in you as the facilitator?
Right, that is quite possible. Quite often the facilitator takes on to the unconscious parts of the group.
Yes.
And he may come from there.
Mm-hmm.
And then while also the unconscious and conscious may not be known to the group, it's about the facilitator to be able to identify, is this mine or is this the group's?
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And if you're familiar with the organizational psychodynamics side, which uses a very psychoanalytic approach
Right.
to organizational consulting, they talk about the transference and the counter transference.
Yes,
The
yes.
transference is what your client, I'm just taking an example, what your client invokes in you.
That's
Okay,
right.
I mean, I'm sorry, the transference is what is being invoked in the client by virtue of his or her past experiences, be it with childhood, adolescent years, caretakers, whatever. Okay, so but the counter transference is, what is that experience of the client invoking in you?
That's
So
right.
if you're not able to understand and separate what is yours from what belongs to the group, you're absolutely right. You'll get totally caught up in that group's situation.
True.
So it's a
Yes.
very hard act to definitely get into. Okay, so
Yes.
let me see if there's anybody else who would like to say something before we move on. Okay, I just want to make sure I'm not missing anyone's comments down here. Let's see. So, Vanita, you had said, Dr. Anu, I think it's like a challenge of converting into an opportunity. Were you referring specifically to this or some other comment, Vanita?
I was referring I was referring to the Keats quote which he mentioned.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to. I'm
Yeah.
doing multitasking here, so please
Yeah.
pardon me.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a
Yeah.
little bit of a history now.
Yeah. I know. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you. So, all right. So let's move forward with negative and positive leadership. And I just want to talk a little bit about this because this takes it into the area of leadership, which a lot of folks, many of us are already involved in at some stage or the other. So positive leadership is about filling the space with what you know and what you can get done. So let me give you an example. So if there's an organizational problem or a dilemma or a quandary that we are in, a leader who's approaching that problem, approaching that situation from a very positive mindset, positive not as in positive and the opposite of negative, positive mindset as in Here I have enough information, enough knowledge, enough expertise about this situation to go ahead and say, hey, let's get this done. This could be a way that we can approach this. All right, let's reach out and make a decision and quickly make this thing happen and make this problem go away. We've all seen situations where that seems to be the tendency in the contemporary organization. I mean, let's see how quickly you can get done. Okay, they're dealing with the pressures of deadlines and all sorts of other issues that they have to deal with from day to day. And so they're very tactical. Even the so-called senior leaders tend to be very tactical in their approach. Okay, let's get this done. Let's quickly make things happen. Let's look at negative leadership. Okay, I just lost that. Okay, so negative leadership starts with the premise that, like the submerged iceberg, there is much that we don't know about a situation. Okay, it starts with an empty space, empty slate, a transitional space which makes room for feelings and emotions, one own and others. No reaching out for action. So you stay with that half knowledge there. Stay with an emptiness and say to yourself, look, I'm comfortable with starting with an empty slate. All right. Because I want to make room for the thoughts, the feelings, and the emotions of everybody else to emerge. Does anyone have anything to say on that? Ah, there you go. So Anu, I want to turn it back to you because you said something. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Anu. You're actually unmuted. You want to just say it? Hello, Anu.
I didn't get that. Anil,
Okay.
yeah,
What
tell
I'm
me.
saying is, you just put a comment there. Yes, it requires being in touch with oneself very deeply, right?
Hmm.
Okay. Would you like to say a little bit more about that? Because what you just said is what Dr. Schein says in his work. That as a consultant, if you are not deeply in touch with what's happening inside you, how can you
That
help
is,
the client? How can you help the client understand what's going on with them?
I absolutely agree with you. As a facilitator, as a consultant, if you are not in touch with your own feelings, it will be very difficult to facilitate. I agree with you.
Okay. Okay. Does anyone want to add on that? Okay. So, Suman, let's see. Go ahead, Suman. I
I mean, last week, if I can share with the group, I was in some coaching conversations, and there were two people I was working with, and with both of them, the breakthrough happened when we hit that moment of silence, and they had to think about what they're doing, why they're doing, or whatever. And to get to that point, they kept saying, "But Suman, it doesn't work. I need to provide a solution, and I need to speed up my responses." So it's going to be so beautiful as consultants if we are able to just get ourselves and the others to that space. I this is beautiful, beautiful, Anil.
thank you,
Thanks.
thank you. This is something that Dr. Ed Schein talks a lot about in his work, and we'll get into as soon as we get into his segment. We'll talk about this. I just wanted to share this with you. I know Dharmesh wants to say something. Go ahead, Dharmesh.
Yeah, thank you. You can hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. No, I was just stating that the whole aspect of being comfortable, of being in the negative space, and which leads to having new thoughts and new perceptions, is is very interesting, because I think it is about, like a lot of people have said, it's about being in touch with yourself, understanding your emotions, and being able to regulate that, because only when you are able to regulate that, you are able to activate your thinking ability and come up with new thoughts and new perceptions. Otherwise, the emotions would take over, and you get drawn into the flow of the situation.
Okay. Okay. All right. So let me just move to the next slide. So there's a very interesting concept that was posited by John Keats. He calls the poet almost like a chameleon. All right. So there's a lack of personal identity. The poet is able to totally nullify himself or herself. Okay. He dissolves his identity completely. No preconceived notions or certainty. He or she is open to impressions, sensations, and feelings forever changing as the situation demands. So if you think of a chameleon, how the chameleon changes colors with the surrounding environment, this adaptability, this flexibility, this openness to change, right? By contrast, if you look at organizations today, they manifest a need to know, they demand certainty, they demand decisive action, seek omnipotent leaders. I mean, how many times? I mean, I worked with an organization for about 30 years, and I don't recall somebody saying to me, "Wow, Anil, what a great job! You can stay in this liminal, uncertain state for days on end. We love you, man. I mean, you are the epitome of motivation." I've never heard anybody say that. As a matter of fact, they were so uncomfortable with my silence, even if I was silent for 10 minutes in the meeting, the leader would look at me and say, "Hey, don't you have anything to add?" So clearly, it's a challenging situation to be in. And if you look at chameleon leaders, they seem to have an uncanny ability for mirroring. All right, this keeps going back to the other one. Let me just see. Just give me a second. Bear with me here. Okay, something's not right here. This keeps skipping for some reason. Okay, here we were. So chameleon leaders seem to have an uncanny ability for mirroring and adapting. Mirroring comes specifically. I mean, it's used in organizational psychology a lot, but specifically in organizational psychodynamics. It's um, it's kind of like joining with somebody. It's a not necessarily agreeing, but being emotionally present with someone, and sort of like if somebody's feeling something and sensing something, you can relate to that person almost by feeling the same thing within yourself. Uh, I'd like to see what this word mirroring conjures up for some of you. This is a very important aspect in leadership. Anyone? Okay. File, go ahead. 1 second. Let me just unmute you. Yes, go ahead, Pile.
Yeah, so I think mirroring plays, for me, I've seen the mirroring is almost like when a mirroring exercise happens, a client is able to see himself in the process as an outsider. And quite often, mirroring also shows the client perspective, which probably he's not seen, especially when the impact of an event or a dialogue between people has taken place. And as a facilitator, if you're able to mirror that to him, the client sees parts of the entire dialogue in a way that he's probably not has access to, and quite often it either becomes an insight or it becomes an aha moment. And I have seen clients go into spaces of silence when they see that, because they have not had access to that space at all.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Vinita said she'd like to also share something, so I'm going to go to Vinita for a second. Yeah, Vinita, go ahead.
I just said that it's like vulnerability being the strength.
Okay. Vulnerability being a strength. So when you
Yeah.
say vulnerability, meaning
It's like if there is a if there is a vulnerability in the environment, and if as a consultant you are also able to recognize that and bring it to the fore, then
mhm.
it kind of opens out a whole lot of things which people are sitting on.
Okay. So we've all heard the expression, people relate to you strongly when they feel that you two are as weak and vulnerable as they are. Okay.
And also authentic.
Authentic, of course, that all comes with that. So if you have the capacity, and yes, that is not totally mirroring, but it is definitely somewhere related to that concept of mirroring. And of course, adapting. Um, and Suman wanted me to reflect on, wanted us to reflect on. I want you to share the connect between conscious admission of weakness and negative capability. That's an interesting one. This seems to be in contrast to the work on appreciative inquiry. All right. So if you all see this comment from Suman, I'd like you to reflect on that. I think it's a very interesting question. The conscious admission of weakness and negative capability. Okay, Dr. Anuradha, would you like to say a little more about that?
I had this, he had this very wonderful ability of being able to pick up the aspects which he was agreeing with, and at the same time, whatever he would not agree with was shared in a manner where the other person would never feel threatened, would never feel, that he's coming on too strong or vehemently. And he was so acceptable as a leader to everybody he came across, which was
Uh-huh.
something which I always wondered, that he's the CEO of a company and not, he doesn't seem to have any disagreement with anybody. And that is because he was this kind of a leader. Yes,
Uh-huh.
very quick to learn new things, very adaptable, never
Mm-hmm.
held on to any fixed positions. But like, if you look at the SHL competency dictionary, you know that number 5 capability influencing is that the leader is able to, call A person who will tell B person, and when a meeting will happen, C person will articulate what actually the leader wanted to say. So he
Oh,
did not
beautiful.
say anything, but
Wow.
the whole group is saying it. So
Incredible. In
that is the SHL number 5 competency, level number 5, for influencing. Now, if you are not a
Wow.
chameleon leader, you cannot get that competency.
Absolutely. And that is a wonderful, wonderful point you just raised. Absolutely amazing point, because clearly I can say, no, well, not clearly, but at least I can suspect that this leader is able to stay with his or her own self to the point that he is not in that that impulse to act and fix things and do things and say things for people. He's letting it all be open, and those people
They
are
speak
saying
for
the
him.
things that he wants it to. Wow, this is amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, this is clearly a
That was
wonderful.
a beautiful capability. I've never seen it before, and I've never seen it after. I
Wow.
only saw it in this one
Yeah,
CEO of a company.
I'd like to talk to you also back channel sometime, and rather via email exchange, to find out a little bit more about this, because it helps me. I'm doing my research on negative capability for my doctoral work, and I think that uh,
Anil, now
yes,
I have a request. Either you call me Annu, or you call me Anuradha, because I get confused who you're talking to.
yeah,
Sometimes you call me Annu, sometimes you call me.
I know, actually I'm getting confused myself. So I have to. Okay, so I'll call you.
So
Okay,
I
how
don't know
about?
who is it.
Okay, let me say this. How about if I call you Dr. Anuradha? Okay,
Okay,
and I will, or just Anuradha, and I will call Dr. Anuradha Prasad Anu. Is that okay?
wonderful.
Anu, is that okay?
Yes, it's fine with me.
Okay, all right, good. Because I'm getting a little confused looking up and down, doing the multitasking here. All right, so Did you want to
And
say
yes, we'll
anything?
definitely chat about this later.
Yeah. Okay. So, Anu, is there anything you'd like to add on that?
Yeah, hi Adil.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, there was some parallel conversation going on between me and I think Vinita,
Yes.
and where she writes that negative capability is like embracing weakness
Mm-hmm.
and appreciating what is not there. So
Mm-hmm.
I was just sort of wondering that is negative capability weakness? For me, it is not. For me, it is because I think the minute we say weakness, then for me it is negative, but not capability.
Okay. First of all,
So
yeah. I mean, is it an oxymoron? Definitely, but definitely, I don't see it as a weakness. I see it as a huge strength.
yeah, exact. The to 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 be able to, like, for in the slide also you've written
Yes.
conscious admission of weakness and half knowledge.
Yes.
So I'm not sure. I don't know because I want to admit that I didn't read the whole paper,
Yeah. If you
but
read,
I'm just trying to raise it here. Ki, for me, it is not a weakness. It is strength. Even knowing that I don't know,
yeah.
for me, is a strength.
So Anu, what I would suggest though is that there's a
Yeah.
paper that I put in the folder. It's by
Yes. Yes.
Robert
I.
French. If you read that,
Okay.
Negative Capability: The Key to Creative Leadership, I think it'll really clarify a lot of your doubts on that.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay. Okay.
and the idea is if you can appreciate what this young poet, I mean, for him to coin that expression and
Hmm.
he used it only a couple of times to his brothers in a letter, and today it's taken a life of its own. I mean, if you look at the two words, negative and capability, they cancel each other out,
Absolutely.
right? But that's so.
Absolutely.
But that's what the meaning of a
That's why it's not a
pattern.
weakness. That's why it's not weakness. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Anyway, yeah.
Okay. So thank you for sharing that, though. It raises a good question there. Okay. So let me just go quickly to this because we want to get into the segment on Schein's work. So you cannot exercise negative capability at the expense of positive capabilities. So folks, you cannot be in a state of negative capability at the expense of being in a state of positive capability. There are times when you go back and forth. Sometimes you remain in that state of not knowing, not doing, and sometimes you have to be in the state of knowing and doing. So it's not that, oh, for this week I'm going to totally abandon positive capability, I'm only going to be in a negative capability state. No, that's not true. It's the ability to summon that state. Let's think about that. To be able to summon that state and be comfortable in that moment, to be with not knowing and not doing, is what negative capability is about. Okay. So breakthroughs in understanding often occur at the edge of knowing and not knowing. We all know that. Around every situation and problem, around every situation or presenting problem lies an empty space. I talk about this from a standpoint of consulting, which Dr. Schein also talks about in his work. Whenever there's a presenting problem, okay, first of all, what the client tells you is the problem may not necessarily be the problem. Sometimes what they're sharing with you as the problem may not be the problem. Because around that problem, if you think in your mind, if you guys should just close your mind and think about a large piece of white chart paper on which somebody has drawn the figure of a woman, okay, and then shaded it and all that. It's a sketch. So you're able to see that sketch only in relation to the empty spaces. If you darkened all that empty space, would you be able to see that figure emerge? No. So you're able to see that figure, you're able to see the silhouette only because there are empty spaces around. And likewise, this is what Keats is talking about. So these out of awareness issues, tacit unconscious assumptions, which Schein also talks about, and unspoken fantasies, they are all in that empty space, the white space around, that we do not look at because we are focusing our mind on that figure. on that problem, and we fail to notice what is happening around that organizationally. And one of the most difficult temptations to resist as a client in consulting engagements is this, because you will immediately go to the figure, hey, here's the situation, here's the problem, let's go get and fix it. Let's make it happen. All right? So let me move on. Just a space for reflective inaction. And I think what we can do is get into the other PowerPoint here, if you just bear with me, so that we can look at Schein's work here. I'm just going to run through this very quickly that we discussed the last time for those of you that were not here in the first session. I think it was, I've just jumped too far ahead. Okay, let's see. Understanding the human process, what is going on inside me, consultant, may also be going on inside them, client. And if you read that chapter 1 by Dr. Schein, you'll see that he talks about try to understand what is it that is going on inside of me. Okay? Because oftentimes what is going on inside of me may also be going on inside of the client. We may even, without even articulating it, we may be thinking and feeling some of the same things. But if you're not comfortable or if you're not knowledgeable enough to what's happening or aware enough to know what's happening inside of you, you're not able to really identify or help, or not identify for the client, but help the client identify with those issues. And a client, Dr. Schein says, will always know more about their own culture and processes than you ever can. So how can a process consultant profess to know more about the organizational culture than the folks who actually live in that culture and work in that culture day in and day out? And then helping the client gain an understanding and taking ownership of those assumptions and realities is the basic task of a process consultant. And you're not there to fix, diagnose, or treat. You're there to help the client discover solutions that work best for them, not for you. Does that conjure up anything for you guys? Because if all of you read that chapter 1, this is what Dr. Schein is talking about. And this is really the meat of the process consultation. So before we go in further into his work, I think just getting an understanding of this segment, even though it appears so simple to understand, it really is not that simple to get your arms around. In an organizational situation, this is where most consultants actually goof up, because they start to get into this let me fix it for you situation. Hey, I'm being paid a fee, so let me see what I can do for you. And so is the client expecting, because the client wants to get off the hook that you're the expert, you can go ahead and fix it for me. And Dr. Schein writes in his book that process consultation is not a technology or a set of interventions for working with groups and organizations. It's not a technology, or you're not making any interventions there. It is not a model for non-directive counseling applications. It's not an occupation or full-time job. It's not unilateral advice or pontification, not organized. If it's not all of these things, what the heck is process consultation, I wonder? Yeah, and Payal, you're right. Ed also says that the consultant is not the expert. And I love the way that Dr. Schein has repeatedly emphasized this expression, helping. As a matter of fact, his entire work is around helping. And Suman, you're right. It's just being there, showing up and being present with the client, and allow the client to take responsibility for what they need to do anyway. We discussed this the last time. The differential between you don't want to put yourself on a pedestal while the client is consciously or unconsciously looking up to you as the expert, that you're going to actually be the Messiah that has come to deliver the organization from all its evil. Okay, so then Dr. Schein has talked about some guiding principles for process consultation. And we can just read them. They always try to be helpful, always stay in touch with current reality, access your ignorance. Okay, I'm just going to turn the mic over to you, Nancy. If you want to just... Nancy, would you like to add what you just wrote? Just speak up for that.
Yes, I think Schein talks a lot about having to be both at the same time, simultaneously present and grounded in reality, always keeping in mind about what is happening in this moment, in this group, and at the same time being able to suspend assumptions. Mm-hmm. And in order to do that, I think what that looks like is asking about the tacit knowledge. What I think I hear you saying is, or are you saying this? Mm-hmm. So really testing some of the knowledge of the group and getting at, you're thereby helping them to voice and articulate what is actually happening that may not be what has been stated. Because what you're saying, what I think I hear you saying is that maybe you don't want to talk about ABC. Mm-hmm. Why is that? Mm-hmm. And mm-hmm. you're getting at helping the group actually begin to articulate a different reality. It's the one that is not necessarily.
And actually, if you really delve into Schein's work, he even says resist from using that approach to say that. And I totally hear you, Nancy. I done the same. I mean, I'll ask mm-hmm. the question, "Hey, is this what you're probably trying to say?" Mm-hmm. But then what happens is sometimes the client will take that hook. Oh yeah, this is what I'm trying to say.
So you're saying he actually said not to actually state
not
it.
To even ask. So don't put any preconceived notions of yours into the client's head.
How would he phrase the question in your mind?
He might ask a very simple question. What is it that you're thinking right now? Mm. Mm-hmm. Or what would you like to say about where we are in this process? Mm-hmm. So like an open-ended question, which helps the client sort of like think for himself or herself, as opposed to saying, "Hey, is this what you were thinking?"
Mm-hmm. Well, if you mentioned earlier mirroring.
Yes.
And so if the consultant is reading the language of the group and doing some mirroring, I would think at some level they want to test the language. Well, how about a question such as, "I heard you say this word or make this expression."
There you go. See the difference? See the difference, mm-hmm. Nancy?
Yeah.
I heard you say this. Or even say, "I thought I heard you say this."
Yeah.
So, in other words, you're saying this or asking that question because you actually heard something like that being said.
Mm-hmm.
And then the client may say, yeah, you know what? You're absolutely right. I was saying that. Or no, I wasn't saying this. I was saying this.
Mm-hmm.
Which opens up a new, as opposed to, see the difference, guys, between saying, hey, is this what you were thinking? Versus, hey, did I hear you say this?
Mm-hmm.
It's a very benign question, very innocuous, you know. Did I hear you say this? And the client said, no, I did not. Or, yes, you did hear me say this. Would you like to share a little bit more about what you were trying to say?
Mm-hmm.
Rather than making it about, this is what I'm hearing, so this is what you're saying.
Yeah. But I think and in addition to that, this gets back to your accessing the ignorance or being in that negative capability, asking real questions like,
Yes.
wow, I'm really wondering. And that, he says, staying present in that moment is always being able to understand what you don't know. There's the one part of testing the tacit, or the tacit knowledge, the underlying assumptions, what's really going on here. But the other level, you actually have to state what you really don't understand or what you don't know in the situation.
And this is what Anu is just asking, and I'm going to give the mic to Anu. Anu, would you like to just ask this just by voice? One question: how does one bring out the tacit process?
Yeah, I'm just wondering. Very interesting what you're saying, but it's not being said in the group. Things are not being said.
Yeah.
There are a lot of processes happening underneath, which has to be surfaced.
Yes.
Before work can really go ahead. Now, how do we bring that out if we can't put it in a question. If we put it and say, this is what I'm seeing happening, then it's really putting a leading question.
Yeah.
Especially I'm talking of not so much of consulting in a GRC space, Anil, but I'm talking of in consulting. When I'm working with a client group, I'm an OD consultant to the group.
Right.
And I'm speaking from recent experience that I've had, that there are a lot of things happening in the organization, which I'm not very sure if the leader is really aware about, or she is aware and she's not wanting to talk about it. But then I'm put in the space of an expert saying, okay, you tell us now what to do.
Okay, so here's so let's for a second role play just for two minutes here. So you are the consultant, you're the process consultant, you're coming and telling me. And I'm saying to you, Anu, I'm perplexed. I don't know what's happening. Can you tell me what's happening inside our system? What is happening inside our group? You know more than I do. I don't know what's going on. Can you illuminate that?
Okay, I can give you
What would you say?
All that I can give you is some examples of what I've seen happening. Now, what does it mean is something that we both together can look at.
So in the moment, Anu, you put those examples forward, this is exactly what I was having an exchange with Nancy on. The moment you put that, you're filling the space right there. Because Schein is saying, don't give
do that. Not to do that.
Not to
I understand that, Anil. He's saying not to do that.
Yes.
But then we are constantly doing this shadow boxing in the organization. I'm not saying what I'm seeing happening.
Yeah.
The leader is not willing to look at what is happening.
Yes.
And then we're just continuing to work and no real, so-called real change is happening because of that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Does anyone want to? This is a very, very, very important, very, very important critical point here. What is it that is happening that nobody's looking at?
No, nobody wants to. Nobody wants to surface. Nobody wants to surface it.
Right? Because we all know that there's this elephant in the room, right? For want of a proverbial elephant in the room. I don't want to talk about it. You don't want to talk about it. Nobody wants to discuss it. Well, the elephant is taking up space in the room. So my question to the group here is, what would you do to help that surface? Do you show them, do you point out to the elephant that the elephant is black or it's white or it's got stripes or?
I can say, Anil, sorry, sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead, please.
I can say that if I try to surface it, if I try to show the elephant, then I'm out of a job.
So you
But if I
don't.
may, sometimes it's worth it, don't you think? There comes a
Sorry?
moment. There comes a moment. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
worth it, you know. And I think it's one of the most powerful interventions is when you can stand there as perplexed as the
Yeah.
team and say, you know, you can always take that risk, depending on the relationship, where they see your, you know, again, you're mirroring them. They're perplexed. You're perplexed.
Yeah.
And then you say, wow, I am really perplexed. And, you know, some will smile, some may crack a joke, some may leave the room. And it's a
So-
small intervention, but it could be.
So what happens is when you're saying as a consultant, "Hey guys, I'm totally perplexed," they're looking at you like you came from another planet. What the hell are you? If you're perplexed, how the hell? I mean, we are newbies. We are novices in this work. So if you're saying and so if a client asks you, just listen to this carefully, guys. If the client asks you, "What are you perplexed about?" How would you address that? What are you perplexed about? You're saying that you're perplexed, you're confused, you don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on as a client, your client. But I'm curious. What are you perplexed about? Is there something that you're wanting to say that you're not saying? Maybe to us. Are you seeing something that we are not seeing?
What, can I come in here?
Go ahead, please. Anytime. Just jump right in.
Yeah. What I'm perplexed about, if I say in a recent assignment that I've been working on, is the fact that there is a steering group which has been put in place, and the steering group has members from different levels of the organization. It was approved by the director, and this steering group is working. But then whatever the work is being done is really, there's nothing. I won't say nothing, but the real change that one wants to see is not happening.
Right.
So why is this?
Right.
This is exactly the way I put across.
Yeah. And so if you're saying the exchange right now is happening between a client and a consultant, the consultant is saying, "I'm perplexed," the client is saying, "I'm perplexed," and the client is saying, "Hey, what are you perplexed about?" Right? Why don't you help us understand what's going on?
Yeah.
And then I might say as the consultant, "Folks, let's think this through. Let us think this through. Not that I will think this through. Let's think this through. Is there something out here that we are not discussing?"
Yeah, I just see Suman has put up a question. Aren't we being opinionated when we say we are perplexed? Is it
go ahead,
opinionated?
Suman, go ahead.
Yeah, meaning if we need to operate in the space of negative capability, when we need to just pause and allow things to come up, when we use words like being perplexed, maybe it was right at that moment, but I'm just thinking, aren't we being opinionated about it without asking them what they think about it?
Well,
isn't that space needed for co-creation of the way forward?
So okay, so you are saying, you're wondering if I say as a client that I'm confused about what is happening here in our session, right? And the client is saying, "I'm also confused about what's happening in the session." Because and if I'm saying that, see, if Schein, Dr. Schein, anybody, if you know about Dr. Schein's work and if you really go deeper into his work, he is very comfortable with saying, "I'm confused." He will tell the client, "I'm confused. I don't know what's going on."
One second, Anil, may I say something?
Right, go ahead, please.
Okay, I know it's just a matter of words, but it means a lot. So when you say, "I'm confused," I could still be operating in this.
Yeah, Suman, there was a lot of static that we got from your. I'm just going to unmute you again for a second. Suman, unfortunately, we are getting a lot of static when I unmute you. So if you want to just write this down while I go to Leslie, and maybe I'll come back to you in a minute. Yeah, Leslie, go ahead. Let's see. Can you unmute yourself, Leslie? Because I'm unable to unmute you here. All right. Unfortunately, I'm unable to unmute. But what she is writing here is, Leslie saying, how does transparency fit in here? If you see or feel something that you feel is important to be addressed, it seems to me that it is important to be transparent with the client in a curious, open manner. So, right? Hey, Sonia, you want to say something about that?
Oh, no, I was just saying that instead of expressing your need to understand better, to just pose it as a question that would open up an opportunity for those spaces for new thoughts.
Right.
That could easily take, allow it's allowing the client to own the issue, to
right.
Delve into it. So if you pose it as a question as opposed to making it personal where you're perplexed,
right,
it still stays in the hands of the client and allow them to massage it and think about it and presence with it or whatever the case may be.
Right. And because just to Leslie's point, I would add that, I mean, Leslie said here, which is very important, that how does transparency fit in here? If you see or feel something that is very important, why not address it? And I'm saying, Leslie, to you, that this is what Schein would say. What is important to me is my feeling right now that we are not possibly discussing some of the things. There's something preventing us. I'm expressing that it's important to me. I'm expressing that there's something preventing us from talking about the issues. But I'm not saying what that issue really is, because the moment, Leslie, Dr. Schein says, the moment you say that this is what's happening to you, or this is what I see happening to you, they are going to jump on that as you being the expert and say, yeah, so let's go fix it. And this is what he's talking about, resisting the temptation to become the expert, to become the doctor, to become the diagnostician, and say, this is what's happening to you. And that sometimes is the hardest part, to stay in that ambiguity and that half knowledge. So thank you, Leslie, for acknowledging that, because this is, I'm only telling you what Dr. Schein says, that you can say, I have a fear, but not say what that fear is. Because the moment I say, this is what I'm afraid of, they'll say, oh, I'm also afraid of that. Or this is what my anxiety is. They'll say, yeah, I'm feeling the same anxiety. So how do we go about fix it? He says you don't give them an escape hatch, because they'll want to escape out of that. They'll want to flee. Nobody wants to do the work there, because this is difficult stuff. They want to come to terms with what's going on. And he says, let them take ownership, okay, of the problem. And this is what he's talking about. If you look at the process consultation, model 1 is purchaser of information and expertise. So sometimes the client will purchase your services. It's all about selling and telling. Model 2 is the doctor-patient model. You're the doctor, they're the patients, so you diagnose and you fix and you provide, you prescribe the medication. PC alternative is the model 3. It is the creation of a relationship with the client that permits the client to perceive, understand, and act on the process events. And we've been talking about those process events, folks. that occur in the client's internal and external environment in order to improve the situation as defined by the client. Improve the situation as defined by the client. This is not Schein's definition of what's going on, Leslie. This is not what Schein is saying. Schein is not saying this is what's going on within you. He wants the client to say what's going on with me. And this is where the subtlety really is between other forms of consulting and process consulting. Suman, that's right. The process is essentially owned by the client. Okay. So anyway, on that note, we are on the time limit. I apologize. The things started off late, technical glitches, whatnot. But thank you for being here and participating in this session. I think will you really hear the recording, sit back with a cup of coffee or tea and listen to the recording, you'll see during those dialogues some exchanges that have happened, which I think is extremely wonderful. Okay. All right. So again, notwithstanding some of those glitches, thank you all for sharing your voices here. I really appreciate it. And I will create the recording and I'll send it to you later on. Okay. Thanks a lot. Bye.